How are some people so lucky, and how do I become one of them?
Okay, so let's dissect luck here, because I'm going to tell you, by the time we're done today, you can be a lucky person, and anyone listening to this podcast can become a lucky person. They'll have other people saying, "Why are you so lucky all the time?" So let's get into it. First, let me start with this comment. Luck is a very real thing in business. And luck can break a business, luck can make a business. Luck plays a big role in business, whereas, say, something like poker, luck bounces out over time. And why is that? It's because in poker, you have hundreds and then thousands of hands that you play. So over time, just with all the large numbers that you're dealing with, good luck and bad luck will balance out. But in business, where you're staking perhaps your savings, perhaps your life savings and starting a business, one episode of bad luck could wipe you out.
Oh, yeah. In a business, just to get it started takes like a year.
Yes. And in that time, you can run into some bad luck. But I'm going to tell you how you can run into some really good luck and how you can bring that into your business and almost guarantee yourself success.
So you're saying you have the ability to control luck. You know how.
I know how to bring good luck into your life as opposed to bad luck.
Does this work in business, life, everything?
I'm going to say that it will apply to business, it will apply to your life, and it will apply to the arts as well.
The arts.
The arts.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right, well, let's hear it.
All right. So when I started in my field of business, I didn't know a lot, but I had a lot of energy, and I was all gung-ho. I used to say to my brother and my father, in 10 years, we're going to be bigger than IBM. A foolish statement of a brash young man, but I had the energy and the drive. But what I didn't have is the knowledge. Now, in my business, publishing, which was driven by direct mail, that back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, it was the largest form. It dwarfed all other forms of marketing, including television, newspapers, magazines. It was direct mail, dwarfed everything else. So
that was the main form of advertising.
It
like
was.
Facebook ads now, Google ads. It was direct mail.
It was direct mail.
Okay.
That's right. So there was something that early on I learned that, or I instinctively knew that I needed more information. I needed more knowledge. I had to get inside the heads of those I am reaching or advertising to, reaching out to. I had to figure out how they think, how they viewed my piece. Not how I viewed it, but how they viewed it. My piece, my advertisement were letters that I would write. Because just for those of you who are, for a little background, my NeoThink books, which I've sold millions of those, I've sold $350 million of my own books that I've written. It's books of self-improvement, of business, of life, of success. And I had to get inside of my potential customers' heads. I couldn't say in my own head, know what they wanted or try to pretend that I knew what they wanted. But I had to start somewhere. So I thought, well, if I send a letter, because I was a searcher and I was searching for searchers, those are the people who respond very well to my literature, searchers. And over the course of the past 45 years, as you know, I brought in over 2 million searchers into my private NeoThink club. But I had to figure out how they viewed me, how they viewed my advertisement, which was a personal letter. So in order to do that, I learned very early about something that we call in the direct mail business a split run. And basically how a split run works is I have a list of searchers, of potential searchers that I'm trying to reach, and I would say, have my control letter, and then I would make a variation of it or a letter to compete against it. And then I would, every other name on my searchers list would get one letter, and then the challenger, the control and the challenger. And then based on the data coming in, I would learn, well, which one did better, and then I could, at that point, figure out why it did better. Going into it, I have no idea what the results are going to be. People who think they know the results, it's just a big I think. And I think means nothing in this business. Metrics mean everything. So I would do a split run and get my data, and I learned more about the person I was trying to reach. I'd got into their minds and these potential searchers out there. So as I started doing this, I realized, well, wait, if I can do a split run and get the metrics on one variable, why can't I increase the number of variables and have multiple split runs with every direct mailing? So I started increasing the numbers of the split runs in every mailing, and I had a very unique system that no one else had. And basically, I would take different colored Sharpies or magic markers, and I would take my reply envelopes and I would tick them. I'd run them down with different colors so I knew what split run that came from.
And so these split runs are just tests, different tests. Can you give me an example?
Variables. Sure, like testing a headline would be one example, or testing the coupon would be another example, or testing the size of the reply envelope would be another example, or testing personalization versus a more third-party approach would be a test.
Okay.
Testing women versus men, testing dentists versus doctors. These are all different types of tests that in the early days I was consumed by. I wanted to know the minds of the people I was trying to reach. I got so sophisticated at it, I would have split runs of 64 splits in one mailing through the sophisticated ticking system I had. Right, it was pretty amazing. No other direct mailer out there had anything like this. So I would go up to 64 splits in one mailing. And I was just learning, getting inside the minds of the people I was reaching. My father's wife used to call me a world-class psychologist, and I told her, no, you can't call me that because I'm not formally trained in psychology. But she said, but you know more about people's minds than all the psychologists. And I said, right, that's because of this technique of split runs. So I learned.
And you studied the human mind for 45 years.
Well, okay, so yes, that's part of it too. You're absolutely right about that.
Right.
So here we go.
So was that part of your study? I mean, I'm sure it was. It contributed to a lot of, I mean, you could literally test.
Oh, that is
Test
a
the mind.
huge element in studying the human mind. I could study the human mind like no psychologist could. Let me put it this way. I know emotional responses. I know intellectual responses. I know the difference between different races, different occupations, different age groups. It all came about through this split running, this testing. Today they call it A/B testing or split testing, right? Yeah. Online. Back in the day we called them split runs.
Okay.
So I was getting out there, learning how people thought, learning their minds, understanding at all levels, emotional, like I said, intellectual, different groups, different demographics. It was an amazing learning experience that I went through. Now, in this process of doing split runs, not only do you learn about your market, learn about their psychology, but you also will stumble upon luck, good luck.
Like what?
Okay, so here's a couple of examples. Going into the Christmas holiday season is usually not good for publishers in direct mail because people are buying information and they're more into buying gifts at that point. So they don't necessarily want to buy self-improvement information, let's just say. They're interested in Christmas gifts and what have you. So that is a down time for us. However, my sophisticated method of locating and finding searchers out there that I wanted to mail to, timing of hitting them was very, very important. In other words, I wanted to get to them quickly. I wanted to get to them before other publishers got to them. So I was sort of forced to mail these names out, even going into the worst season for a publisher in direct mail, into the Christmas season. So going into the Christmas season, I told myself, well, I'm going to take a loss. I'm going to mail first class. Now, you have to understand, back in the 70s and 80s, first class was just between friends, writing friends, or children writing, or adult children writing their parents, live on different sides of the country, or kids away for the first time at college, writing home to their parents and their parents writing them. It was a
Before cell phones.
What's that?
Before text messaging.
Right. All before all of that. Right. So it was a very intimate sort of dynamic was first class mail, and that's what it was meant for. Then the post office for businesses had something called third class mail, or back then you call it bulk mailing. And that was for all the direct mailers, all the publishers, all the catalogs, and all of that would mail through bulk mail or third class mailing. But first class moved much faster than third class. So I'm going into the holiday season. I say, well, I'm going to take a loss. I'm going to take a loss to get to my searchers before other people do, and I'll go ahead and bite the bullet, and for the first time, I'll pay for first-class mail. Now, no direct mailers back then mailed first class, particularly large direct mailers such as myself. They all use bulk mail. So I go ahead, I'm going to bite the bullet, and I mail first class going into the holiday season. To my shocking surprise, not only did it do as well as the third class mailing, but it did better. It did better. So not only, what I was hoping for was a trade-off in my expenses. I'm going to pay more, but I'm going to get to them sooner. So hopefully that will offset some of my costs. Well, it didn't just offset costs. It was much superior, the results, as to the third class, which was shocking. No one's heard of that before. Well, here's where I stumbled upon something which I categorize as good luck. I stumbled upon this. Look, I was a searcher. I've always been a searcher all my life, and I know what it's like to be a searcher, not to just resign to sort of the way things are out there. I've always been a searcher all my life. So I'm trying to find searchers out there who will be on we'd have a same wavelength, almost like a soulmate out there. The searchers are not that common. So that made me realize the psychology that I was dealing with. I'm a searcher. I'm reaching out to other searchers. So there is an intimate connection between us, much more worthy than bulk or third-class mail, what in those days people called junk mail. So here I was up till that point, just doing what all other direct mailers did and trying to reach on a personal level another searcher, another soulmate with junk mail. Now, psychologically, first-class mail is what I should have been mailing all along, but I stumbled upon that through my split runs.
How does somebody know if it's first class or junk mail?
Oh, it was back in the day. It was very obvious. You couldn't use, for example, red and blue borders for first class. You couldn't say air mail. You couldn't say par avion, French for air mail. You couldn't say Correo Aereo.
Okay, so it was like branded first class.
It was
like
branded.
It had a look and feel like, oh, this is first class.
Well, not
mail.
only that, but you could just right away see this upper right-hand corner. Even before I knew to put all the red and blue border and all that, you could just see it right away. Oh, this is a first class mail. So you either have a bill you're fearing in there, or you have something special from a friend or a relative or a loved one. So they're getting something from a loved one. Me, I was their loved one. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It just changed the whole psychology of my letter that I was sending out. Now, instead of an advertisement, they're looking at a love letter from me, a searcher, to them, a searcher. I've discovered them at that point. I've discovered them. So I switched and I became the only mailer, and my business peers would say, "You're nuts, you're crazy." And then, of course, they try to pick my brain.
Why? Because bulk mail was
They're
much
saying
cheaper.
you're leaving so much money on the table. Bulk mail was a fraction of the cost of first class mail. Mm-hmm. But I had my little secret, and I tried to keep it tight to the chest, because it was. And I don't know if it would have actually worked for other mailers at that point because they didn't have that special connection. So again, psychology came into play there. So that was one example of just stumbling upon first class mail.
And so what did that do to your business?
It lifted it up to another level. I expanded rapidly. Back in those days, you were competing to get to names before other mailers. I got to names before any other mailer by a long shot. So I was the first to these names, the names that I wanted, the searchers, after I did a lot of computer work and study, and we have a whole system that is confidential on how to seek out the searchers of the world. So through all that, I got huge advantages, and I rapidly grew. So that was one example. Now, with that rapid growth, let me tell you what happened. all mailers back then would mail more like the big mailers would mail quarterly. I was a quarterly mailer back then too.
What does that
times a
mean?
year. 4 times a year.
Oh,
You
okay.
do a big, massive mailing 4 times a year. And your cutoff date, your deadline would be usually 30 days.
What does that mean?
When by the time you have to place your order or it's no longer valid.
Oh, okay. So when you get the mail, you have 30 days to
30
order.
days. And that was the standard back then. No one would ever go less than 30 days. They think you go less than 30 days, you're going to lose a bunch of sales. So that was the conventional thinking back in those days. So here I am mailing, because I'm now first class, I mail weekly, 52 times a year. Everyone else is mailing 4 times a year. I'm mailing 52 times a year. Now, that became a logistical problem for me because I have orders piling up and orders overlapping. By the time they mail it back, another mailing's already out, and and phone calls coming. It became very difficult initially. And I thought, well, if I could just get my deadline down to the same week they received their mail, it would, from an organizational standpoint, it would help clean up the nightmare I was dealing with at the time. So here's what I decided to do. I decided to do a split run, and I was saying, well, I can take some loss in the number of new customers, customer acquisition. I can take some loss in exchange for much more organized, better operations. So I bit the bullet, and I did a cutoff the same week that they received the mail, a deadline. And that was considered suicide to do something like that. I mean, even just a 2-week deadline would be considered just cutting your orders dramatically. So here I did it the same week. They received the mail on a Monday or Tuesday. I would shoot for Tuesday. That was the best day to receive a mail. With that Friday of a cutoff date, of an expiration date. So I thought, okay, well, here come the orders. How much am I going to lose? How much money am I going to lose by doing this? Well, lo and behold, it didn't even match the numbers of the split test. It dramatically improved the numbers.
Wow.
So basically, a searcher to a searcher, first class mail. I'm saying, look, if you're serious to join me, let's do it. Let's not diddle-dally around. Let's do it right now. The actual number of orders increased at that point. So that was never expected. That's good luck that I stumbled upon. I stumbled upon that. I was just doing the deadline to try to get better organizational control over my company. It turns out it's actually a boost. Now, a lot of people have copied me since, a lot, because I'm always in the front end of these things. People see what works for me, and they turn around and do it themselves.
Well, now online, they do
what,
like
1 hour or something?
50, like 10 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah. They all, but that I'm the one who originated all of that.
So you started like
I started
a
it
short
all.
deadline.
Yeah,
That's
I started
crazy.
that. Yeah, and
Yeah, everybody does that. Everybody does that.
Yeah, no, I know, because it works. But I didn't know it worked. I didn't go into that test with the thought it was going to work. I went into it thinking, well, how much can I lose to gain organizational control? And as a result, my business boomed, and that is stumbling accidentally or incidentally onto good luck.
So how's that controlling luck?
Oh, because the more you do split runs and split tests, the more you're going to stumble upon these incidental situations. And that brings, over the decades, I brought so much good luck into my company through these incidentals, through these things that were never even seen before, because you can't see them. They're beyond, you don't know what you don't know. And you can't see these things out there. But your massive split runs, and I know you're starting webinars now, and you're doing testing on Facebook, and that's one of the things I'm going to require of you, to go crazy on your split testing to draw leads into your webinars, because you will stumble upon situations you'll never in any other way, shape, or form stumble onto, and that's bringing good luck into your business. By the way, over the years, people have said, how do you get so lucky, Mark? What's your secret? What do you do to get these good luck in your business all the time? I just smiled, and I know the answer, which I'm giving to you now, is massive split testing. By the way, you're teaching that free web class that is just incredible. I want you to put the link below, because people need to go to that. It's an incredible. I mean, you learn so much. You cannot miss it. But I want to say something. I picked up something that happened to you and your advertising, and it was just, it was just kind of. It wasn't even planned. You weren't even searching for this information, but you're standing on a gold mine. You are standing on a gold mine, and it happened just by accident because of your split testing. On the bottom of one of your ads, you just put the NeoThink logo. And all of a sudden, that ad those leads not only pull more numbers than your other ad leads, but they were warm leads because there are people out there over the decades who have gotten involved in NeoThink. There's millions of them. And even more so, there's many times who have received my letters over the years who are warmed up to the NeoThink, but they haven't become actual members. So and then you have those 2 million members out there. So they see NeoThink, and that's going to draw in a lot more leads, which you just stumbled upon on your split run, just because you happen to put the NeoThink logo at the bottom of one of them. Right. And there you are without and you didn't even put that on there to test it. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, you just put it on there. You didn't even split run it. And then all of a sudden through legacy data, you're like, wait, this is pulling so much more than before. And then these leads come in and you get more orders because they're warm leads. They're not cold leads.
Right. And it was an accident, or I got lucky.
You got lucky. You brought good luck. And how did the luck come to you?
Because I was just testing a bunch of random stuff.
That's it, man. So I'm telling you, this is how you bring good luck. And then people are going to say, how do you get so lucky? And if you try this, you're going to be that person where people say, how did you get so lucky? This is the key. And what's beautiful about it is not only are you getting these incidentals out there that turn out to be good luck, but you're learning so much. As I said, my father's wife used to say, you're a world-class psychologist. Because, see, you get in and you learn how people think and how they feel. And that makes you more and more powerful as a marketer. I'll give you one little example. I went with my sister back in the day to Fifth Avenue Advertising Agency, world-class, one of the top advertising agencies in the world. And I wanted to see, what if I brought NeoThink to these guys? What could they do with it? These guys were... they had huge clients, and I sat down in a big boardroom, fancy building, big oval shape with several top advertisers sitting around the table, and they're telling me all these things they can do for NeoThink and my NeoThink books and how they can advertise these and make it more public and so on. So they're showing me all these potential campaigns, and then I would ask them some questions. I would say, well, how do you know, or why do you go in this direction? What do you know about the person you're targeting? What do you know about their mind? And it was just a big stare of silence. Oh, what do you mean? These are just our ideas. I'm sure it'll work. Well, you're sure how?
So these top marketers in the world at the time on Fifth Avenue, they were just guessing.
More or less. I mean, they're experts, but you know what? They're working with other people's money, with my money. They're going to be working with my money to figure it out, right? I'm not down with that. I want to work with my money with insight into who I'm reaching. I'm not, and at the time I was not, some Fortune 500 company that could blow, $50 million or $20 million on this ad campaign. That's not who I was. I had to know each step of the way by penetrating the minds of those whom I'm reaching to know if I'm on the right track or the wrong track. And if I'm on the wrong track, I can change it. If I'm on the right track, I can move further in that direction to improve it more. And then through split run, through split testing, I can either go more in a certain direction or move away from a certain direction. But these guys just want to get a big wad of money, spin it on an idea, and see how it does. I was not comfortable with that. I called the meeting. I said, guys, it's not going to work out. Well, we're not done yet with our presentation. Well, no, it's just not going to work out.
Okay, so that's how it works for business. You just test a bunch of different things, and then you will increase your probability or likelihood of being successful, stumbling upon something that's considered luck. And that's how you control luck.
That is. However, the luck part is just a bonus. Because what's really going on, and why I say if you want to be successful, you have to take this path. You need to test, and then test. You need to it's in your DNA, man. You have to test always. Everything you do has to be a test. If you have an idea, let's say about a headline, don't just come up with an idea. Come up with a test, a split run, so you can test that against the control. Or you can test it 6 different ways. You need to always test, and the beautiful thing about online is how easy testing is. It's much simpler than direct mail was. So you can test more, and you can test faster. You can get your response right away. It's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful field to be in. That is going to be your greatest asset to success is test. The incidental will be these things you stumble upon, which are really good luck. And that's the way you bring good luck into your business. Now, by doing all these split tests, too, you get bad luck out of your business. Because bad luck is spending, like those Fifth Avenue advertisers, spending a lot of money on a campaign, and then the campaign fails. That's bad luck. You avoid that. You are basically getting bad luck out of your path by doing split runs, by doing split testing constantly. Anything that's not working, you're going to spend minimal money on that, and it goes away as you move in the other direction. So you get bad luck out of your company, and you bring good luck into your company, all while learning who you're marketing to, what works and what doesn't work, and why. This is truly a key to marketing success.
Wow. Okay. So test is the lesson here, and then you don't have to be controlled by luck, and you can control luck by testing, and then testing.
Right, and get rid of the bad luck. See, bad luck will bring down businesses, but you're going to be minimally affected by bad luck through these cost-efficient split runs and the campaigns that aren't working. You have a small investment in that, you drop it, and you move in the other direction.
Okay. And so we talked about how it applies, how to control luck in business, but what about your personal life and other areas? Does this also work?
You can use this at any age, on any level. So let's say in the romantic field, on dates, if you're a young man, or in your marriage, if you're a middle-aged man. You can do it with your children. I would do this with you guys when you were growing up. I would say, all right, if I take this approach, let's see how they respond. And let's take this approach. And I'll tell you one that, just real quickly, that really made a huge difference. It's in disciplining. And I would let's say if one of you children came up with kind of a sort of an irrational response to something, I could be firm and discipline. That's one approach, and I could see your response. And the other approach was I listened to you, and I would say, I could see how that would really get me angry too. Totally disarm you. By the way, that is the technique that works. Totally disarm you, and all of a sudden in your little mind, your defensiveness just goes away, and then you're completely open. And then I say, but listen, this is what you should be doing. Although I completely agree with you, why that would make me angry too, Wallace. But we don't want to act on that. This is how we need to deal with it. It made a huge difference, and that was a little split run I ran on you. You see, you can run split runs.
So this is parenting gold right here.
It's parenting gold, and it absolutely is the way to parent children. You tell them when they're upset about something, instead of overpowering them, which is the sort of the instinct of a parent. Like,
why is that?
Because you want immediate and solid results. So you think, well, if I just raise my voice and I'm really firm, they're going to know that that's not right, and therefore I've taught them a lesson. But what you really do is you just bottle up things inside of them when you do that, because you shut them down. And I can't take credit for this. I actually read this in Parenting Magazine, so I gave it a shot, a little split run. So when one of you was really upset, I tried this technique, and it just blew me away. And I'm like, you know, yeah, that would really make me mad too. Boom. All the defensiveness went away. Nothing was bottled up, and you're completely open to hear rationality at that point.
Huh. That's really interesting because I think that carries over not just through parenting, but I'm going to try that more with my leadership as well.
Yes.
And I'll split run that approach.
Split run it, and the people you're dealing with have no idea you're doing these business-like split runs with them, but they're very
my little
effective.
Guinea pigs.
But you're learning and you're getting into, remember I told you, that's how you get inside the minds of other people, is through split running. That's why I don't mean this in a nefarious way, but I can control other people's thinking because I've done so much split runs. I know where they're coming from, what they're thinking, and I can go in there in such a way I can bypass their defenses. That's one of my skills now from all the decades of doing split runs. I can go in, I could go around their defenses. I mean, people who have read my trilogy Super Puzzle say how emotionally affected they were from that. That's because I was going in and around their defenses, as opposed to just a straight nonfiction that's banging up there against their defenses. But my fiction goes around their defenses and really touches them. Same thing if a young man or young woman is dating, they can do these little split runs. They figure them out, what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and do it. And then they're like little scientists there, figuring out effective ways of doing things, right? And in the arts. So, your sister was a pretty big deal in the entertainment field. She opened for One Direction during that big smash, biggest tour ever, their North American tour. And she opened for them. And, she was close with the One Direction guys and toured with them, traveled with them. So she ran into a bit of a problem. She called me one night. And she goes, "What am I going to do? They're all girls who come to the One Direction concerts, and they hate me. They hate me because I'm close, and I have all my Facebook." That was before what got really big after Facebook?
Instagram?
Instagram. It was before Instagram, Facebook. And so she said, "What am I going to do? I could see it in their eyes when I'm trying to perform, and they're glaring at me."
So they hated her because they were kind of jealous of her. Right?
They were totally jealous. And you'd even see
Yeah.
these crazy comments online, these haters. It's a big deal for an entertainer to have all these haters. And they would say nasty things to her because they were jealous because she was so close with the One Direction guys. So she figured out a split run. And listen to what happened. So she goes out every night and she's glared at by these girls who hate her. And first of all, they want to see their boys. They don't want to see her, right?
By 30,000 girls who just are hating her.
Hating on her. So then she goes out. She figured this out on her own, but it's one of these scientific split runs that she did. She goes out and she pulls out her iPhone and she goes, "Who wants to see the guys in the back? They're just waiting to come out." Girls scream, you need earplugs to keep from going deaf. I went to a couple of her concerts and walked out, could barely hear. But she goes, Who do you want? Which guy back there do you want to see you? Niall or Harry or whoever they were, Liam.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. Who were the other two? Anyway, so she said, "How about if I take a picture of you right now and send it to the boys in the back?" 30,000 girls went absolutely stunningly crazy, jumping up and down. Instead of just sitting there in stone silence, they're jumping up and down. So she would take pictures of the audience, and she would send them to the guys. Girls loved her after that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little split run, a little psychology. She got inside their minds and figured out, right now I'm a block, I'm a bridge. I mean, not a bridge, but a block, a wall to the boys in the back. What if I become a bridge to the boys in the back?
Okay.
A wall versus a bridge, psychology. She got in their heads. Now she knows those girls. Huge turning point in her career.
Wow.
So now she got massive. She had at one point, she had millions of followers on Facebook. 6 million, 8 million. I don't remember now, but massive following on Facebook because she turned those girls from haters to lovers. So there's an example of a split run in a personal situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I could go on, but you get the idea here.
Yeah.
And look at the luck, how that changed her from bad luck to amazingly good luck, right? So this is the secret to learning who you're after, learning about your business, how to make it better and better, how to get rid of bad luck, as she did, for example, in the arts, and how to manifest good luck in your life.
Wow. And really, it just comes down to test, test, test.
That's it. Test, test, test. Now, in our podcast, Wallace, I've decided over the next several podcasts, I'm going to deliver life lessons to be successful. Okay? As you know, I'm preparing to go on some external podcasts, and the big problem I have is they want me to define a specific subject matter. That's the nature of those podcasts.
Yeah, it's been kind of tough because you literally cover everything.
That's
because
it, yes.
you use NeoThink.
Yes.
NeoThink applies to business, your personal life, relationships, health, wealth, finances, your free time and hobbies. You get into philosophy, understand psychology, and you created a whole new branch of science, of psychology,
Right.
of NeoThink, Neotech. So
As our last podcast, we see how it starts here with the individual and just keeps not only the individual.
And of course, on the societal level too, how could we forget Immortalis?
That's it.
Right
yes.
here.
Right.
But
And it actually starts with the baby, the born baby, and how they receive knowledge from the world. And they are started off in this following mode, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing till we jokingly said, when all is said and done with Immortalis and all that, I'll be joining Elon on space exploration because it just keeps getting wider and wider and broader and broader. So how do I narrow down for our external podcast beyond our podcast to a specific subject matter? It just sells me so short of
It
what
really
I,
does.
what I
Yeah.
could be presenting out there. So this has been a little bit of a challenge of figuring out how am I going to now go out on third-party podcasts. And so this has been something that we've been trying to work through. There's a lot more than meets the eye there. But I will say this. Somehow, I'm going to have to brand myself. The one thing is we've been struggling and trying to figure out how to brand Mark Hamilton out there. The one common denominator that we've noticed throughout all my wide spectrum of knowledge, I could be a business guru. I could be an intellectual. I could be a political slayer. There's just so many different directions I could go in. But then when I stepped back and thought about it, what I realized is this. The common denominator on all those subject matters and beyond is NeoThink. It's teaching people limitless thinking. You start off with lower level thinking, what I call perceptual thinking, see, react. You go to work, here are your responsibilities. I see them, I react. I see, I react, get bored, get a routine rut going. You're sort of stuck. So many people say, I'm stuck in life. That's perceptual or lower level thinking. Then some people do rise up to a higher level thinking. It's more impactful, more powerful. It's conceptual thinking, where they think in concepts. We talked about customer acquisition last time and how this little bake shop kind of had just a lower level thinking, just bake shop. But if they put some concepts like a monitor that shows them baking up a big beautiful cake or something, that's a concept. Throw up another concept. Let's get some of that aroma out there on the passers-by, especially during the heavy traffic of foot traffic times. That will, draw you in. That smell will draw you in. That's another concept. Another concept would be touch, feel, taste. I have a table. They had 2 employees. Put one of them out front during heavy foot traffic time, and have some sliced up cupcakes or some fresh baked bread, and have samples for people. So those are concepts, and you bring them together, and you kind of have a new full picture or NeoThink puzzle picture. So Neothink is pulling together concepts like puzzle pieces into a puzzle picture, something new, and it's limitless. Neothink is limitless. You can keep going into these breakthroughs. So how do I present myself? How do I brand myself? Well, maybe that's it. Maybe brand myself as the discoverer, deliverer of Neothink, a limitless thinking. It lifts up the powerless into the powerful through Neothink. That's how I've helped over 2 million people through Neothink at all levels.
Right. Yeah. That totally makes sense, because it's you. And what the result of that is kind of, you just show somebody how to create an extraordinary life for themselves.
Yes.
And you also show people how to create an extraordinary business.
Yes.
And one step further is you show people how to create an extraordinary world, an extraordinary society.
Yes.
But all of that is through Neothink, through a
Yes.
limitless way of thinking.
Absolutely. And look at
That
the
makes
shirt
sense.
you're wearing, Immortalis. That's our next big move.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, it's starting a new country with no initiatory force through the prime laws, our Constitution. So this is Neothink. So I was trying to brand me, like, what do we talk about? Do I talk about politics? Do I talk about intellectual matters? Do I talk about business? Do I talk about relationships? Do I talk about raising children? As you can see, I'm pretty good at that. What do I talk about? What I'm going to talk about now is what we're zeroing in on is a new way of thinking, a limitless way of thinking, Neothink.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess the other podcasts, whatever their niche is, you can talk into that niche.
Right.
If it's health, you can talk into health. If it's business, you can talk into business.
Yes.
If it's personal success, personal growth, you can do that. If it's philosophy,
If
yeah,
it's romantic relationships, if it's raising your children, if it's civilization is screwing you over and holding you down, holding you back, well, we can talk about that too, how we're going to free you, how we're going to liberate you.
All right.
So, Wallace, on your webinars, I want to go back to that. You're sitting on a gold mine, and you're going to tap that gold mine through what?
Test, test, test.
That's it, my man. So that is what I'm asking you to do now, and I'm asking you to do as well. To be successful, test, test, and test.
And then test some more.
That's it. I want them to go below right now to the link to your free web class, because I'm telling you what, it's going to be very, very beneficial to your success.
Yeah, it's a free web class I run about once a week. And just click on the link below, or somewhere around this video will be a link.
So out with the bad luck, in with the good luck.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Test, test, test.